Okay, so welcome everybody out tonight, and we are live now. And leftovers from last week, well, actually, it's 2 weeks ago. Um, we talked about what do you think we should know more about, and one of those topics that we talked about then was water quality. Question about Orangetown water in particular, and so I do have a little follow up on that um, that we talked about, and this probably be as good a place as any to discuss that. And I will do a new share here. I found a site ewg.org. You can see that, and you can just put in your zip code and pull up various water systems that are offered there. And so I did Town of Orange, and they serve 4,500 people. I'm not sure if that's taps or if that's people, but I would think people total, but I'm not sure. Um, so they detected this place has a tap water database that they collect and keep track of. And so there was 7 contaminants that exceeded their health guidelines. And those 7 contaminants were some of them I never heard of before and can't hardly pronounce them, but like bromochloromethane was 75 times their guidelines, and chloroform was 98 times, and dichloroacetic acid was 80 times, and haloacetic acids were 292 times. Radium was only 4 times. Um, Triomethanes were 314 times, and trioacetic acid is 121 times. And then there was some minor uh, things that were detected that weren't above level, but like barium and dibromochlorothane and fluoride monoacetic acid and nitrates and nitrites. So French has quite a quite a number of things that you probably wouldn't want to drink. And if you look at these potential effect, I believe every one of them says cancer. Of course, a lot of people say everything living causes cancer nowadays, but anyway, something to be aware of. But not to single out orange. I looked at Culpeper Town water, and it wasn't a whole lot better. They had less things, but they had some real high things also. So anyway, I thought that might want to consider from what I've been told to get a real water test if you're out on a well costs as much as a remediation system. So whether you want to test or not, or just kind of assume that if you can find a water system that's well water and that's near you, you can probably assume that whatever they've got, you probably have at least some of, and we probably all have some radon in our water if you live up towards the mountains. And there's a company called Simpure that has a sale right now, and they're pretty much recommended. They have basically 2 types of water systems. One's a countertop that requires electricity, but no plumbing connection. And then they have an under the sink model that requires plumbing connection, but most of them are, I think the one pictured there has electricity, but most of them just run on the pressure of your well pump to pump the water, and then you have connected to a separate spigot, which takes up the place of your dish sprayer or whatever in your sink. So one of them takes up counter space, and the other one takes up your storage space under the sink. But um,
Hey, Winston.
pretty reasonable. Yes, go ahead.
So, I don't know if y'all had heard about this before, but I know that the Virginia Tech does a water testing for wells. It might be just in Orange, but I'm pretty sure it's other areas too. And it's not as expensive, but they only do it once a year.
Hmm.
Um, so if you're out in Orange or Culpeper, they do testing through
Um,
Virginia Tech.
I had mine tested, but they don't test for all those chemicals. They test for sort of a basic, very basic subset compared to what the EWG site, at least the one that I got through my extension. Maybe there's a different one that I'm not aware of though.
Yeah, and also your county health department will do one also, but there again, it's mostly just bacteria that they're concerned about. Um, from what I've heard, these extensive tests, which I guess they have to have what's the machine that tests for thousands of chemicals signatures, a mass spectrometer. I think they actually have to use that to to go to the depth that we're seeing here of problems we have. So
Yeah, I actually just pulled mine up and it's got they tested for iron, manganese, arsenic, hardness, sulfate, fluoride, total dissolved solids, pH, sodium, nitrate, and then a few different bacteria,
okay,
copper and lead, and that's it.
okay. Well, even that's better than the county one. So if you had not near any one of those, it probably warrant a system that and if if you go back and look at the EWG site, they list what filter system takes these out, and the neat part about it is well, activated carbon which is could be a very cheap system. Um, will take out about everything except radium and radon. Doesn't take out fluoride either, or nitrates. But anyway, it takes out a lot, and that could be a pretty cheap system. Reverse osmosis is the only one that takes out everything. The only disadvantage to reverse osmosis is if you don't have one, if it just goes through reverse osmosis, you're going to have kind of a flat, stale, well, flat tasting water because it takes out all the minerals too. But some of these systems actually their last cartridge is a cartridge that puts minerals back in, the good minerals.
I
Anyway,
think radium is the one that worried me the most, especially because um, the bedrock, just because of that, my house is already just under the threshold. So I think it's pretty likely. I looked at some other wells around the area, and they're all high in radium as well. So I'm sure mine is.
yeah, I'm sure mine is too. And, I'm drinking a lot of water these days, so
Yeah, might have to switch to Diet Pepsi.
yeah. So anyway, that's our follow-up from 2 weeks ago. Uh, maybe it will encourage some of us to get off the dime on that.
Yeah,
Pretty,
I'm sorry, Brother Dennett. I didn't mean to. Hopefully, didn't. I didn't intend to be negative. Just that I was pretty astonished actually by all the stuff that was showing up in the wells around us that wasn't being tested for by the extension nor like the health department. So
Yeah. Yeah, like well that one did test for arsenic, and I hadn't seen any high arsenic until I checked a well system for a neighborhood that's pretty close to me, Axa Acres in Madison towards Orange, and they had a huge uh, arsenic problem, you know, and nothing being done about it there. It's like 400 times the recommended level. So, and I assume that's just coming out naturally out of, out of the deterioration of our bedrock that we're sitting on.
yeah, I think that's likely.
But anyway, so a lot of things going on underground here. So we'll go on to change my share back. So we did let's do the market wrap here. Um, Been kind of crazy in the markets in the last, well, ever since the election actually. So gold, the markets were generally up, but not very much today. Um, kind of mixed what you were looking at, but the gold was up a little bit today, but it's been generally down ever since the election. It was at 26.34 today. Goldbacks were up a penny from last week, up to $5.21. And I suspect we may get an opportunity to buy them under $5 again. Silver was down a few cents at 30.42. The gold silver ratio is back up to 87. Tilt and zeros, the long-term treasury ETFs were both down slightly today. And wheat was up a few pennies. Yeah, Dennett was just texting me, said no offense taken. He's lost his connection, I think, but he didn't run away mad.
Oh, okay. That's good. I was just about to text.
uh, anyway, um, the PDBA, which is another agricultural commodities fund, was up a little bit at 38.64. It's actually up about $1 from last week. PDBC was flat at 13.44. Um, and then the industrial military complex was kind of interesting today. It was generally up except for Lockheed and Boeing. Some of the others were up rather nicely since last week. Last week was a time when most of them were down for a change. So U.S. oil was down back under $72 today. So maybe that means we're not going to have a war, hopefully. Bitcoin was down below 92,000 today. So it's been going nowhere fast in the last week, but a lot of volatility. Ethereum was down at 33.28 today. And to talk about cash a little bit, how much and where? Uh, with all this happening around the world, somebody brought up to me that I listened to about cash, and you know, I'm not just talking about in your brokerage account, but like mattress cash. Hopefully you'll find a more inventive place to put it than under the mattress. But anyway, um, what's your thoughts about how much cash you should have just as an insurance hedge? Like for how long of your expenses?
My thought process has always been 6 months, but that's typically quite a bit. So
Yeah, I would think at least a month, being able to cover things till things got back to normal if they're going to, and count on spending that money because if we really you know if a war broke out or whatever that was really serious, um, there'll only be a certain amount of time that people would exchange their food for cash. There would come a time when you would have to have something that they wanted more than food if they thought their food would not be able to be replenished. Like like maybe a package of seeds might be exchanged for food, but maybe not cash and maybe not silver or gold. So that's kind of the way I look at it. If a certain resource, doesn't have any future anticipation of being replaced, then you would have to have a hard time bartering or buying it. Anyway, just want to throw that out there. So of course we've been talking about the big fiscal year record 1.1 trillion in interest expense alone. So that's kind of something that it's going to be dogging us for a long time, I'm afraid. Um, Talked about the other week that Boeing was cutting a large percentage of their workforce. Uh, that made their stock go up for a little while, but it was down again today, pretty substantial. And so I keep harping on that just like a water plan, do you have an unemployment plan? Looks like we're heading towards a lot of unemployment. And of course, question is, are we going to have a war in the Middle East, which would probably be with Iran? Are we going to these long-range missiles that have been shot off? We're back to the Cuban Missile Crisis, basically. This is the most risk we've seen since the days of John F. Kennedy. So, seasonal information. Still time to plant trees this fall, and if it keeps getting too late, and I keep saying it's too late to plant a fall garden, but you could have still planted one last week, and the way the weather's been, you could still grow things, and just can just in a normal winter, you could still plant garlic. So that's the only thing here on the list that I would really encourage is to plant some garlic. You can still do that, and you could plant onions and shallots and things like that too, but usually survive the winters here. Feed your bees if you got them. Good time to order seeds and trees early. I guess it's not early anymore. I just got a big seed catalog from Johnny's this week. Usually they wait till at least after Thanksgiving, but they get in a rush on it. We've talked about getting a hunting license, just in case you might need one. And I certainly encourage everybody to get some potassium iodine for at least a 14-day supply for every member of your family. Maybe some kelp and other sources of iodine also. Like if you had a small child, for example, you couldn't give them a potassium iodine tablet, but you could brush on, monkey blood iodine onto their skin and they will absorb it. So another source. It's a good time of year to, which we'll talk about a little tonight, is start a livestock hold-on. And if you're not familiar with the term hold-on, it's something that is simultaneously a whole in of itself as well as part of a larger whole. In this way, a hold-on can be considered a subsystem within a larger hierarchy. So Joel Salatin's always talking about hold-ons, like maybe a rabbit hold-on or a garden hold-on. Especially when one pours, the output of one pours in, like rabbits, the output of that rabbits, the trimmings and the poop from a rabbit hutch, feeds into a garden, let's say, or a compost pile. So a waste product becomes an asset to another hold-on that you're trying to accomplish there. So anybody have any progress they would like to share with us they've made in the last couple of weeks? For me, I've just been kind of hanging out up on the roof, not doing too much else. I do need to cut some firewood soon. I suspect we will eventually have some winter here. So it's a good time for, like I said, planting trees. It seems like primers and ammunition and lead and brass and things like that are more readily available, but it seems to be because they've jacked up the prices on all of them. But it is at least available, it seems like now. And under the alpha strategy, primers would be an ideal thing to store high value in a small space, and something considered essential for some people. This is a picture of what Yoder's at least had a week or so ago. I don't know whether they still have any or not, but it's a 30 milligram tablet. So that would probably be one of those per child and 2 for an adult. So be pretty flexible if you had children. So got a short video I'll play a little bit of. It's a guy that I've listened to through the years, and he had no farm experience, no homestead experience. Grew up a city boy, but they inherited a farm from his wife's parents, and which was several acres, like over 100 acres. So he got his feet wet in a big way. But, sure that. grab a bit of this just to give you some ideas of things you might not want to consider, among other things, and then we'll discuss, if you don't have a large land holding, things that you can do besides the things he mentions here.
People that we've interviewed, going back and seeing how things have happened. And then from our own experience, I've kind of listed these in what I think are the best for beginners, medium level, and expert. You may disagree, someone you know might disagree, that's okay. These are just what we have experienced here on our homestead, so take it with a grain of salt. Let's talk about easy livestock first. Now, easy livestock I categorize as for people with zero experience who are not sure if animals will fit their lifestyle. They're easy to source. So, if you want to get this livestock, you'll be able to get them easy. They're easy to manage. That means fencing and feeding and watering and caring. They're going to be easy to breed. You can pretty much let them do it themselves. They're going to be easy to feed. It's not going to be hard to find the right feed for them. You're not going to accidentally poison them or something. And if you decide they're not right for you, they're going to be easy to rehome. So if you have no livestock experience, these are the ones that I suggest you start with, because if you decide, livestock isn't for me, you can get out easy. And if you decide you love it, they're going to be easy for you.
We just bought these chicks today. So now we just set up this nice little place for them to go into.
You cannot not say chickens are the best beginner livestock. They are just the best. There's no way I can rationalize any other choice for your first livestock. You can order as little as 3 of them online. They can be here after you order them within a matter of weeks, or maybe even sooner. You can literally just give them slop from what's left over in your house, and they will turn that into more chicks and eggs. You can, if you decide you don't like them, sell them on Craigslist and they will be gone within a week. People like buying chickens. They're not too dirty. They're not too disease prone. They're pretty hardy. They're not very difficult. Someone you know probably has them and can give you some pointers, maybe even get you started with some good stock. Chickens are a great place to start. And if you get meat chickens, you can harvest them in as little as 8 weeks. So you literally can make a 2-month project of your first livestock, see if it's right for you. And if you like it, you get into eggs. 6 months, you're going to have some farm fresh eggs from a chick, and sooner if you buy point of lay hens. Now, I'd love to talk for an hour about chickens, but I already have. There's a masterclass in the Pioneer Library, Chickens 101. If you haven't watched it, it's going to cover infrastructure, breeds, feeding and watering, the systems that we've set up, and a whole lot more. So check out that when this is over. That'll be part of your homework for the week. Let's move on from chickens. Ducks. Ducks are another good beginner livestock. They grow more eggs than chickens will. They grow more meat. They do it off of less. You're going to get more eggs throughout the year than you would from chickens. They do better in bad weather. There are so many reasons to upgrade from chickens to ducks, if you don't mind that they're messy animals. Now, you can easily find ways to fix this, make it better. I got a video about how to make brooding ducks a lot less messy. Butchering them is a nightmare. Pulling off those little feathers is like, ooh, I will never butcher another duck myself. I don't like killing ducks. I think they're too cute. It's hard for me to kill a duck. I get in a really bad mood. But if you can deal with those negative things, the mess and butchering ducks, they are better than chickens. Now, we don't have many meat ducks or egg-laying ducks anymore because I'm allergic to duck eggs and I don't like butchering ducks. So we don't have many on our homestead, so we decided the cons outweigh the pros of why they're better than chickens. But if you are not allergic to duck eggs and you like duck eggs, you'll get more of them. And if you like duck meat and you don't mind butchering them, or you found a place that will do them for you, even better. Ducks are a great starting place. Another one you've seen on the channel as a new recent addition to our homestead is rabbits. They're one of the best self-sufficient meat options because it's very easy to take a doe and a buck and have them breed. Now, there's a learning curve. There's a lot of people who have had a hard time getting their rabbits to breed and figuring that out. We have been very fortunate. You haven't seen it on the channel yet, but Homesteady Pioneers, you always learn things first in the live show because this happens in real time. Our rabbits already kindled. We got a bunch of little rabbits out there. We are doing a colony setup with our rabbits, which is like the most hands-off thing we have ever done with livestock. We literally set it up, put them in there, pour feed and water in, and walk away, and they just made a ton more rabbits. And that's a lot of self-sufficient meat that will keep going. It's a very hands-off approach. We're actually going to put a video out on that soon about the colony method, because there's been a lot of questions on the channel about that. There can be a learning curve. There can be mistakes made, but they're not very expensive livestock to get started with. And if you make a mistake and something, unfortunately, winds up with the breeding where it's not working out, you can replace them. You can eat the ones that don't work out and find new ones. So great starter place for livestock. Of course, if you're going to have them for meat, you got to be able to kill that cute bunny. That's yet to be seen how I handle that. I don't do very good with ducks. We'll see how I handle bunnies. So we'll see. That's coming in a future video. Now let's talk, before we finish up the easy tier, let's talk about a couple different ones you might not have even thought of. This one my son's going to love. If you have a body of water or are going to add one to your homestead, fish are a great option for livestock. Fish are animals that, if you manage and feed, are very hands-off. They're going to be more fish than the ones you put into the pond. And if you do it right, you can have an unending source of protein that is very hands-off, adds a bit of fun to your homestead. Just all around great addition. We're talking about putting a pond on the property because, man, it's really hard to beat fish for easy protein. The fish in the picture here is a bass. Not my first selection. I'd have some panfish, but the pond in the back is on my brother-in-law's homestead, and a nice little pond. He's been managing it, and it's full of fish, and they just keep every year more and more. So good option. And then another one that you don't see in the picture, but it's probably attached to the fishing pole, could be considered livestock: worms. You can take worms. You can do them in an apartment if you're in an apartment now. Feed them scraps. They create worm casings. You can use that to add nutrition to your gardens. And so worms are another additional, beginner livestock. Not super fun if you want something to pet and love on, but thought it was worth mentioning, something to consider, and an additional source of protein on your homestead if you want to feed your chickens some worms. Go catch a few fish from your pond. Something that we have to consider. Now let's go to medium difficulty livestock. And these are for people who like owning livestock and are ready to try something a bit more complicated. So not necessarily a hard animal, not something that's going to be a lot of effort and a lot of work and give you a really hard time, but an animal that you're going to have a little bit more stick-to-itiveness. It's going to be harder to rehome these animals, harder to source them in the first place, so once you finally get them, you're going to want to keep them. So once you get over the easy livestock and you're like, no, I like livestock, I like having animals, I'm going to stick to this, that's where these come in. So the first one, and this might surprise you, but hands down, I could argue this all day. Mini Jersey cows. These I almost put in the first level of easy livestock. The only thing that bumped it out was the fact that they are a more expensive animal, they're harder to source, and they would be harder to rehome. So you have to be dedicated, and they're a dairy animal. So I would never put a dairy animal as a beginner livestock, because you have to care for a dairy animal. You have to be there to do the milkings all the time. It is a lifestyle adjustment. So you have to know, hey, I've owned chickens for 5 years. I've been there every morning and every evening for my chickens. I love that lifestyle. I don't feel like it's a ball and chain. I'm ready to go to the next level. If that's where you are, then mini Jerseys are such an easy animal if you're already accustomed to homestead life. I'm going to make a video soon about how the mini Jersey is the best, hands down, homestead animal. And it's because no other animal out there, my son's giving me the thumbs down. He's saying, nope, chickens, Dad. Sorry, buddy. No other animal will go out into your pasture with one single strand of twine and stepping posts. I can take my girls out into the field. No other animal's that easy to fence. They respect it. They are trained to the fence. I have very well-mannered, respectful mini Jerseys. They go out and they eat that grass. And by the next, within hours, they've turned that grass into a product. Every single day I get a product from them, milk. And that product can be turned into all kinds of other things. So you might say, well, a goat can do that too. Not exactly. A goat can't turn that same grass into the butter that the cow can because there's more cream. And from that also you get ice cream and all the other things you got to do with cream. So they got more product there. And then on the flip side, I also, if one of my cows have a bull and we don't want to keep him for breeding, now I have meat. So I have meat, I have milk, I have butter, I have cream cheese and ice cream. You can create so many things from this one little animal that is incredibly easy to fence. Not a hard animal to work with, not a dangerous animal to work with, mini Jerseys. And you're thinking, well, what about bulls, Oz? I got to get a bull and bulls can be dangerous. No, you don't. Because anywhere that you live, I promise you there's somebody who has a bigger farm with a guy who comes every week and does AI, artificial insemination, and he can inseminate your cows. You don't even need a bull. You are very hard pressed to find a person who can AI a goat or AI a pig for you. I guarantee you, if you're willing to pay them, you're going to find someone who can AI your cows. So, of course, somebody out there is going to be the exception. Somebody's going to leave a comment and say, oh, I can't find anybody. But if that's the case, you could learn. It's not too hard. You could learn it. So just a fantastic animal, can do so much. They're docile. They're easy to fence, easy to work with. I can't say enough good things about the mini Jerseys. So if you're ready to get into the next tier of homesteading, that stands alone from any other dairy cow. This doesn't include all dairy cows. This doesn't even include other breeds of mini cows, which we had a question about that Dakota asked, and I'll answer at the end. Next animal, mid-level, pigs. Again, maybe surprising to see it so soon in the lineup, but I think all you have to have for pigs is good fencing and a steady supply of feed. That is it. Pigs might get worms, and it might affect their growth a little bit. They can get sick. You got to pay attention, but all animals can get sick from something. But if you have good fencing, your pig is going to go from a little pig to a big giant pig, and you're going to be ready to harvest that pig. We had pigs before we had goats. I have never in my life lost a pig to anything that was not planned. You know, they've never died from sickness. They've never escaped and got injured or killed by a predator. Only time my pigs died was when we brought them to the butcher and they had a planned death, and it went quick and quiet and it was over like that. I have lost goats. I have lost sheep. I have not ever lost a pig. So great option. Again, start with feeders, and then if you really love pigs, eventually you can go to the breeding side of things. Not going to spend too long on pigs because I could spend an hour talking about pigs, but again, I already have. In the Pioneer Library, there is an entire masterclass, Raising Feeder Pigs. It will tell you everything you need to get started with pigs, infrastructure, the breeds, who to buy from, feeding them, watering them, your schedule throughout the season, and more. So when you're done with this, go and check out Raising Feeder Pigs in Masterclass in the Pioneer Library. The next one is bees. Again, one that maybe we don't think of as livestock all the time, but definitely livestock. They have their own unique set of challenges. I will never do bees myself because I just don't like being around bees. But if you can get past being stung, they are technical. There are some difficulties to overcome, and you can lose an entire hive. People do. A lot of times beginners wind up losing entire hives. But there's no other livestock that you can give less daily attention to than bees, other than maybe fish, which we talked about. But bees you can manage on a once every couple week basis, depending on the time of year. A lot of time of the year, they're going to water themselves and feed themselves without you. Now, that's not the case year round. You are going to have to supplement them and care for them through the hard times. But what other animal could you take care of and then go on a 2-week vacation and then come back and check on them and they're still good. There's very few animals you can get away with that. So for next level stuff, mid-tier bees are a good option. And then at the end of the mid-level tier, we're going to put all turkeys, quail, pigeons, guineas, all the other fowl. They all have their pros and cons. Some they're not as easy as or as domesticated as chickens. Some are more wild, some are harder to keep track of, but they're all a good option for next level livestock. Finally, let's talk about the difficult livestock. And these are for people who have experience with livestock. You know that you're ready to take on breeding, more difficult veterinary procedures. You're going to be able to deal with the escape artists, all those kind of issues. So the first in the more difficult livestock, I would put Nigerian dwarf goats. These are like regular goats. I have found them to be a bit hardier than regular dairy goats. They're smaller, so they're easier to fence and easier to manage. And then from Nigerian dwarfs, you could bring in the other kinds of goats. Dairy goats being the most challenging. Before you have dairy goats, meat goats, especially like Kiko goats, are a little bit more hardy oftentimes. As you've seen, we have had difficulty with dairy goats. For years, we have difficulty with dairy goats. They're one of the hardest animals to have on a homestead because what we talked about before, they're a wild animal that's been domesticated. You got to deal with the hoofs, you got to deal with the horns, you got to deal with the worms and the browsing, so they're tough. Along with them, I feel sheep. Sheep are harder to fence. You got the insulation of all that wool. You can have hair sheep, which would be easier because you don't have to fleece, deal with the fleece. Sorry.
Okay. I wanted to get through that thing about milk goats being one of the hardest animals to take care of and everything. So anyway, so you get any ideas about that or questions come up? Back to that.
Are mini goats of the same? I just found out my neighbor has some mini goats, and Maggie's enthralled with them now. My dog. Are they are they any different than a regular goat, I guess?
Well, they're probably even harder to fence, maybe. Just because of their size that they can slip through about anything. But other than that, it's pretty much the same. Brother Hughes has Nigerian dwarfs, which are a milk breed.
Yeah.
And other than they have excellent milk, and they're a smaller animal that certainly not going to hurt you probably. So that's an advantage. Some of the billies of the bigger breeds, can be quite dangerous.
Yeah, I had mentioned that I didn't really didn't really like billies. They were jerks, and she said that hers in particular, I guess she treats them a little bit more like pets and has had them castrated, and they're pretty nice, but otherwise I don't, but I guess one of the things that I have a question about is I've always wondered, how do you I'm interested in how you personally handle traveling away from home when you've got livestock to care for.
Yeah, it's I don't since my son moved away a few years back, I don't have a real good handle on it. I've tried to cultivate. I've used some neighbors' kids and stuff like that through the years, but I don't currently have what I would call a real good solution to that.
Gotcha.
And I'm about to I have to wrap this up and about to run out of power, and I can't find where somebody ran off with my charging cord. But anyway, if I go away, all of a sudden you know what happened. But the one thing I wanted to bring up that was that the smaller the livestock, the more productive. You know, a cow can reproduce herself once a year. A ewe or goat can reproduce herself 2 times a year, or 2x a year, because they normally have twins. A sow can reproduce herself 16 to 20 times per year. A rabbit doe about 50 times per year. A Muscovy duck about 70 times per year. A chicken hen about 100 times per year, assuming you got an incubator. Quail about 150 times a year. A queen bee 2,000 times per day in the spring. So you see where I'm going there as far as the size of the livestock? It's a big difference. So what other micro livestock can you think of besides bees?
Well, I suppose some ants are edible.
What was that?
I suppose some ants are edible.
Yeah, I suppose, especially if you dip them in chocolate. The other ones that, like he mentioned, was earthworms, red wigglers. And if you didn't eat them, you could feed them to your fish, or it could be an output from your rabbit hutch, or things like that. The other one that I could think of would be black soldier flies, mealworms, things like that you may or may not want to eat yourself, but they certainly produce good food for poultry and fish. Um, the the main thing I'm looking for choosing a livestock at this point is something that you can raise your own food for, or that they can feed themselves. And like 6 hens, you could probably do that, just from leftovers and garden scraps and stuff. But you take it up to 25 hens, and not likely. Quantity really matters. Having 5 or 6 hens, or 4 to 6 hens, is very efficient. Having 25 hens, you're kind of in the egg business then, and it means you got to go to the store. Or your livestock forage on land you don't own, like bees, for example. I mean, if you had a quarter-acre city lot, you could have 5 or 6 beehives, and not, they're getting their nectar and pollen from maybe a 2-mile radius, around there. So even though you have little land, you could. And another thing that works out that way is pigeons. There's others I'm sure that I'm not thinking of right now, but you provide a home, and that's about all you have to do.
When he was talking about the mini jerseys and just a different wildlife, he didn't mention. I know I had looked at like how much, like, a mini jersey, I guess, is smaller than a regular jersey, but as far as it's saying how much land you need per animal, because I know I'd been told before, like with cattle and stuff like that, you needed to have at least 2 of them because they're companion, and then you needed to have like 3 acres per animal or something. I don't know.
Yeah, they would they would count as about a half an animal unit, because they generally figure an animal unit is a 1,000-pound cow. So they're less than half that size. So that's probably how they would figure. So if you were able to raise 1 cow, you'd be able to have two milk cows and their progeny on the same amount of land. The other thing, for a homestead versus an economic enterprise, you want to choose maybe a dual or triple purpose animal, like a Dexter cow, for example, might be more efficient for a homestead than a Jersey, assuming you're going to get a semi full size. Dexter's maybe twice as big as a mini Jersey, but quite a bit smaller than a typical Angus or Holstein. And they can traditionally they've pulled carts and plowed fields, and as well as provided beef and milk. So the other thing to consider is how much space does your flock or herd need, and that kind of gets back to the difference between a cow and a hive of bees. That